people on a beautiful day like today and ask you, like, why are you here? Why are you not outside? That's kind of where I'd rather be here with you, but at the same time, I'd rather be enjoying the sunshine. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're actually at our 12th Empowered Senior Speaker Series, so this is a full year. So, welcome to our new people joining us today for the first time, and welcome back to everybody who's been here in the past. As you can see, our group is growing monthly. We moved here from the library because we were breaking the fire code there, and I think we're going to start doing that here. So we have a backup plan. So we came here, and also because we like the tables. We like that. I know you like to have the tables and chairs, but just be prepared. If we keep growing, we're going to have to ditch the tables. So, but we don't want to discourage you from coming again. So please come again. So, just by way of introduction, my name is Marion Goard. I'm the host of this event. I'm a broker here in Burlington, and I focus on later in life moves. I work primarily with older adults and estate sales. So, my experiences, my working with other clients, I've learned over time that this type of information that we're presenting in these sessions is needed, and that even though we're at an age where there's an abundance of information online and access to information, you never know who you can trust, where you can go for reliable information, and I can assure you that you're in the right spot here. So once again, thank you for coming. Also, just, we've got a little bit of technology issue. Oh, yes, sir, ma'am.
Raise the volume a wee bit, please. Yeah.
But you're gonna have to do it through the main machine. So we're gonna ask the folks, sorry, I should have asked it, but the sound check if that was okay. We're also having a little bit of technical issues today. The wind outside is messing around with the Wi-Fi, so the slides are taking a little bit of time to populate. So it's not your eyes, it's the technology, it's a screen, but it will come to be. But I just wanted to acknowledge our educational partners, because it's without them, this wouldn't be possible. They helped to make this event, or to contribute to the event in many ways, financially, also their presence, their support, and just by way of introduction, we'll just start on that side. We've got Jeanette Bach from Fluid Senior Transition. She's been a presenter in the past. Many of you have had the opportunity to speak with her. Thanks, Jeanette. Beside her, Irene Joba, 360 Downsizing. She's the gal who will help people when they're in a transition, making a move from one place to another and wondering what we do with our stuff. But also, even before that, if you're just trying to get yourself organized, Irene's a great person to help. Next to her is Meredith Jokin. She's from Hearing Well Matters, so self-explanatory, hearing aids, helps with hearing support. That's Josh. So Josh, the Hearing Well Matters is owned by Rob Hamilton, and Josh is Rob's son. He's here for the first time today. Thanks for coming. On the far right, it's Jen from Smith's Funeral Home. And beside her, Carrie Porter from Chartwell Oakville Properties. And so again, self-explanatory, retirement home in Oakville. And beside her, Jerry Tzia from Paul Care Burlington, a home care company. And beside her, Jerry is Kim Rutledge from Vistamere in Oakville, also a retirement home. Also, Sarah Sanix is here from Smith's. And Denise LeBlanc is from Arbor Memorial. Not with us today is Neela White. She's fortunate to be overseas, traveling on vacation and at a family wedding. And Paul Cuttajar from Senior Care Access, also a presenter in the past. So thank you very much to all of you for helping me. That's the loudest we've got here. We'll keep talking. Also to acknowledge Lisa and Nita, who help at the door and help to make sure that everybody gets here on time and is sitting in our also couldn't do it without them. And also, just a comment. So if I send out emails to everybody that I have an email for, and so I'm assuming that you're receiving them. If you're not receiving my emails, it's really important that you speak please with Lisa and Nita, so that we are in contact with each other, and also phone numbers. If I have to make a change at the last minute, I really truly want to get in touch with you. I don't want to have a room full of people and none of us here. So a phone call would be very helpful. So if we don't have it, please just again speak with them. also, when you came in today, you would have received a raffle ticket. So that ticket is for an event that's coming up on June the 13th at the Royal Botanical Gardens. It's called the Evergreen Vitality Summit. It's the first time this is being held, the first time for this event. It's a health and wellness full-day event. Presenter from the past, we had Carly Hickey here once talking about advanced care planning, and Sandra Akinchuk talking about navigating health care in Ontario for seniors. So they are two nurses and they've gotten together and they're hosting this, it's a full day event. So the ticket, the prize that we're drawing for today is 2 tickets to this event worth $50 each. So $100 if you can come away with that, you'd be like a person. The day includes a breakfast, a lunch, exhibitors, and a full day of sessions. So we'll return to that later today. And I am proud to say that I am one of the champion sponsors for that event. It just again reaffirms that my commitment to working with older adults and the importance of sharing information of that nature. So good luck to you later. Just before we start, so there are handouts that you've got. Our regular handouts for the event that's got everybody's contact information. Some of our presenters have put handouts up for you. I think Sarah's got some, but there may be some extras that they'll speak about. But you've got them there. Also included is an evaluation for today. I really appreciate it if you give us the feedback from today's session and your comments about future sessions. I just wanted to make a note that on that evaluation, there's one question that we've added today, and that is, would you be interested in coming to a session called the 10 Most Important Conversations to Have with Your Family? So we did host that session in the fall last year, but it was again it was a daytime session, so primarily older adults there. But because we're talking about having conversations with your family, we thought perhaps it would be good to bring your family with you. So if you're interested in that, please indicate so. And also on there it says whether you'd like to have a weekend session or a weeknight evening session. So if you are interested, please also just indicate what your preference would be, whether it would be weekend or evening. Appreciate that. When we get started with our presentation today, please, we've got a full agenda. You've got some notepads. Please just jot down your questions. Today, we're going to look at the questions or address the questions once everyone has presented, because each presenter is covering a different aspect of what we're covering today. So we may find that your questions will be answered along the way, but also we would just rather have a more fulsome conversation once everyone has presented. Some of you may have pens. I have to keep saying this every time. Some of the pens, if you open them up and you're not getting them to write for you, they do write, but they've got a little red tip on the end of the nib, so you have to take that off. It's not the pen and it's not you, it's just that little tip there. Please just also turn off your cell phones if you don't mind, or put them on silent before we start. And also to note, the session today, as all of them, it's being videotaped, and the session will be available for replay on the website. I do send out an email again after the fact with a link to the replay, but also to note that all the sessions are available on the website, so you can go back and look at any of those sessions. So right now, this will be the 12th one. There's lots there to catch up on if you haven't been to those sessions. Oops. So today's topic, death, dying, and funerals, and navigating end-of-life decisions. Subject that's often avoided because of the difficult nature of the conversations. But once again, I see that you're here, so you're interested in having those conversations and exploring this further, and maybe hopefully coming away from today's session with a little bit more knowledge and being empowered to make some decisions and have those other conversations. We couldn't be in better hands today. We have with us 4 presenters. We have Lori Smith from Carpenter Hospice, Denise LeBlanc from Arbor Memorial, Tara Russell from Arbor Memorial, and Sarah Summix from Smiths. So just a bit about them before we start. So Lori Smith is an RN with 21 years of palliative care experience, in which the last 18 has she's been with Carpenter Hospice. Her current role is the intake coordinator, which involves triaging, referrals, and organizing admissions. And the next, Denise LeBlanc, she's worked for Arbor Memorial in her current role as a cemetery director and funeral planner for the past decade. Prior to this, she was a 911 call taker and dispatcher for the Peel Regional Police, where she started working fresh out of high school while attending university in different areas of police headquarters. She's actively and proudly involved in volunteering in Halton's Women Place after they played a vital role in her past personal experiences, and which is an incredible resource and organization to whom she attributes her strength, success, and humbleness. Denise's passion has always been to help others, hence why she feels she truly has found her calling servicing families with Arbor Memorial. She's humbled to help families with such sensitive matters and is thankful to get to know and serve so many wonderful, kind people in her own community. Just to give you a sort of a day in the life of a funeral director, Denise came today and she said 3 of her clients passed away last night, so she was busy. So again, if you have, she was I'm not sure by their side, but she was certainly involved in those experiences and cared for the families at that time. Tara, beside her, with a business and gerontology degree. Tara has been able to couple her skills and experience to assist, support, and educate the adult population. Without a doubt, assisting families with pre-planning for their final disposition has been a very rewarding position for Tara. Supporting them through the hardships of losing a loved one is an experience that was next to none. While it's never easy, her goal is to ensure the experience is as seamless as possible. And then also, Sarah Sunix. Sarah attended Heritage College with a certificate in counseling, and then went to Humber College and graduated as a licensed funeral director in 2012. She's married with 5 children. Kudos.
Yes, it's true.
There wasn't a typo. And is passionate about educating individuals and families on the benefits of planning ahead. Her vast knowledge is a direct result of her almost 7-year career at Smith's, where she helps guide families in navigating all aspects of end-of-life planning. Her expertise extends to palliative care, death and dying, executor and estate checklists, among others. And Smith's Funeral Home is the oldest and only family-owned home in Burlington, and they've been around since 1938 with homes in Stony Creek and Grimsby. And then something else about Sarah. Today's her birthday. And she's here with us, not out with her 5 children. Okay, that's all for me, so let's get started with Lori.
Okay. Can everybody hear me in the back? I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about Carpenter Hospice. One of our nurses said something really special yesterday. She's only worked about 6 shifts, and I thought I would share it with you. She said, I love coming to the little cottage in the forest. So I'm like, yeah, we are on the forest, and it is kind of like a little cottage. So I thought I would start off by just giving you a little bit of history about the hospice. We opened our doors in May of 2002. We started with 10 beds, and it was just a residential hospice. We didn't have any other programs at the time. It was a great start. The city really embraced it. The mayor was involved. The Rotaries all got involved to help finance the opening. And then the big donor, Len Carpenter, $500,000, hence he got his name on the building. So that is how Carpenter got its name. We did have the pleasure of caring for Mr. Len Carpenter for end-of-life care, so that was really fitting. He got to be with us. As the years went on, the hospice programs grew. We started to add supportive care, bereavement, wellness, and we outgrew our little cottage. We were using some space at St. Stephen's Church, which was on our property. Unfortunately, the building had a multitude of problems, and we ended up buying it and had to demolish it, and hence it is our parking lot. We didn't want any builders moving in because we would lose that valuable space. So now we were really short on space, so we added an addition to our hospice, which we opened in June of 2020, right in the thick of COVID. So that was quite challenge to open up the residential piece. Unfortunately, at that time, all the other programs were shut down, so we just had to focus on the beds. In opening our new building, we have 11 beds now instead of 10. with the opportunity this fall to open up a 12th bed, which will be our respite bed or on symptom response. It's a little bit of a dual bed. It's going to be available for people when you're off on vacation and you have a loved one that needs a place to go. We could have them for a week or two. It's going to be available for somebody in the community that is having symptom problems, and we can bring them in for several days. Our expert nurses getting their symptoms all managed, and then home they go. We do have one more bed that will fit in that same room that hopefully down the road we can open, and then we will be 13 beds, which is pretty amazing. So that's kind of a little bit about the hospice. The things that we offer now, and now that we're out of COVID, we brought back a lot of our programs. We offer bereavement and supportive care, both in-house to our residents, but also to the Burlington community. So anyone in the community is welcome to reach out to us and have one-on-one counseling, group counselings, and attend right on site. We have our wellness program up and running, so people with life-limiting diagnosis can attend programs. We have pet therapy that's back now at the bedside. Our music therapist is up and going, and music therapy, she runs bereavement programs as well as does legacy work at the bedside with our residents. And our newest addition is a social worker. RJ just started with us April 1st. So now we can offer social work services to our families and our residents right at the bedside. 50% of the time spent with us on that side, and 50% now reaching out to people in the community that feel they need social work support. So that's another big thing that's growing. We have Reiki that we offer both for the wellness program and our bedside. So our music therapist and our Reiki therapist often work in conjunction, going into the rooms and playing music and having Reiki at the same time. So that's another great thing. So Carpenter Hospice services, Carpenter Hospice services the Burlington area. Each city has a hospice in this area. Oakville has Ian Anderson House, Mississauga, Dorothy Ray. Hamilton's lucky in the sense that they have Bob Kemp, Emmanuel House, and they have beds at St. Peter's that are palliative. So our 11 beds are dedicated to service our Burlington community. In saying that, if I have empty beds, I will fill them from someone with outside of Burlington. But the priority will go to some sort of Burlington connection. That can be the person lives here in Burlington. It can be the person maybe lives in Stony Creek, but their family lives in Burlington. And it could be that everybody lives outside of the city, but their family doctor's in Burlington. So that's kind of how that goes. If I have empty beds and there's no one here in this city that needs it, I will actually reach out to our neighbors in Oakville and Hamilton and Toronto and see if there's someone in need. So last week I got someone in from Toronto, family in they were desperate to get a bed and we had a bed available. And this week I brought someone from Hamilton that has no Burlington connection, but it's nice to help out when we have beds and they don't. So that kind of explains how it works, but sort of first beds will go to Burlington residents. That's our support system. How we're funded, the government does give all hospices in Ontario X amount of dollars per month per bed, and then the rest is through donations and fundraising. So I know that we have to raise just over $2 million a year on our own to keep that building going and sustainable. We have lots of help from Burlington community people, events, they golf tournaments, garage sales, they ultimate hockey, help support. We do certain events. We do a direct mail campaign, so we pick one family, they write their story and we mail it out. A little plug for our hike, if somebody's looking for something to do on Saturday, June 1st. It's our Hike for Hospice. It's on our grounds. We walk around the neighborhood. We start and finish on the property of Carpenter Hospice. Fortunately, there's no tours that day of the building, but if somebody really wants to have a look, feel free to reach out to me and I will tour you another day. And then we have our gala. And so February, I think it's February 8th, 2025. It's a past board chair gala. It's going to be a fabulous one, I'm pretty sure. It's all the chair of the boards that have been on Carpenter Hospice that want to be involved, actually organizing it, running it. So there's another event if you're looking for something. So how do we get a referral to Carpenter Hospice? People, I get questions all the time about that. The ideal, perfect way, there's lots of ways to do it, but the perfect way is that the person is linked with the, I think they're called home and community care right now. It changes all the time. CCAC, some people may recognize that, the LIN, but I think the new title is Home and Community Care. Same organization, just a different name. And when someone's getting home care in the home, there is a case manager assigned to their care, and that would be the person at the person's request that would fill out the referral and get it to me. Once they come in, I set up a chart. I used to go and see everybody personally pre-COVID, and COVID obviously changed that, and people are still a little skittish about having a lot of people in their homes. So 90% of my assessment is done online. We have access to Clinical Connect, people's records, so I can get a whole history. I then call the family and fill in the blanks, and then we make a decision. Is that person on our referral list because they need hospice down the road at some point, or are they on our waiting list because they need hospice now? And then the people that are on that referral list, I explain to them, if things change, you feel that you need hospice, somebody just needs to reach back out to me. I don't call and check on people all the time. People don't want the hospice chasing them down. I get that. I know people will come to me when they feel that they need us. The other little thing I'm going to jump in here is about power of attorney. It's a perfect time to sort of address how does power of attorney for medical fit into that call that comes to me that says, hey Lori, my husband, my mother, my father needs a bed. Because my first question is, tell me what's changed. What's changed from when I spoke to you guys 6 months ago or a year ago or last week? My second question is the biggest one. Is the person willing to come to hospice? And sometimes I get, well, no, they really don't want to come, but I'm the power of attorney and I really need them to come. Well, the answer is no, they're not coming. They have to be able to agree. If somebody has been deemed incompetent, if they're unresponsive, then obviously the power of attorney for medical can accept and ask for a bed in hospice. But if the person's capable of making that decision, they must say, yes, I will take that bed. What happens if someone says no, and it does happen, no, I don't want to go? I try to offer, come for 2 weeks, give us a try. At the end of 2 weeks, I'll come in the room, we'll sit down and have a meeting. Are you staying or are you leaving? Often that option, people say, oh, okay, well, gee, I have an out here. It doesn't seem so bad going to hospice now because I know I could leave in 2 weeks. I have yet to have somebody leave. Once they get here, they're like, wow, I'm staying because I've got access to all these other little things that I didn't have at home. If their answer is still no, which occasionally does happen, there's not much what we can do except the family, obviously, with the care team trying to encourage someone to come. So that kind of explains that one little piece that that person, if they're capable, does have to be part of the decision-making of accepting it. The other ways of getting a referral, if somebody's not linked with home care, is the family physician or the care team. Our referral form is on our website. It's one page, easy peasy to fill out, takes about 5 minutes. So it can be printed off and given to the family doctor to fill out and then sent to us. It can be filled out by the oncology team that the person's linked with, social work, it really, to be quite honest, anyone in that person's care team. Sometimes, and not often, somebody's condition may change really quickly and then its time is of the essence. So fill it out yourself, family, and get it to me and I will get it in the queue to go to the people it has to go to. Everybody that comes into hospice has to be linked with home and community care, but I can do that in a pinch if something were to change. So thankfully, that doesn't happen that often. People usually have the time to get it to us in the various ways, but lots of ways to get referrals to Carpenter Hospice. When somebody's referred to us, we keep an eye through the community partners that we deal with, and we're lucky here in Burlington, we're small. We have one hospital. So the care team at Joe Brandt is the only care team that I deal with. It's not like Hamilton, but I think they have 5 hospitals or something. So getting to know everybody is difficult. Well, we all know each other. A lot of us have been in the jobs for a long time. So LD from Joe Brandt, Dr. Park, Dr. McCarthy, they have no problem picking up the phone. The charge nurse from the palliative floor will pick the phone up because we do admit people from hospital and home, both. The visiting nurses will pick up the phone and call me. Family doctors, if they're concerned, will call me. It really is a lovely, tight-knit circle. So I often know what's happening in someone's home before the call actually comes in. Hey, Lori, you're going to expect a call soon from this family because this is what's going on. So it's great that it works and everybody talks. Those connections are really important. So I just sort of wanted to touch on what is palliative care. Often when people make that transition into palliative care, as soon as they hear that, panic. Oh my gosh, am I dying right now? No, you're not. So the actual definition is palliative care is specialized medical care offered when someone is facing a life-limiting terminal illness. So I can have people on my we'll call it referral list, because wait list means they need a bed, referral list for a couple of years. Somewhere along the line, they were deemed palliative, so their treatment shifts now to either giving more time or giving better quality of time, because maybe they're not going to have any more treatment. They're just going to deal with, I'm living what time I have left and going to do what I want to do, and I don't want chemo, I don't want radiation. And some people are doing all those things because maybe it's going to prolong their life by years, but it is still all palliative care. Once they transition to comfort palliative care, that's where things change slightly. So that's where there is no more treatment going on. The case managers, there are 3 palliative case managers in Burlington. Usually the cases are transferred over to them. They have more services to offer because the goal is to try and keep people home as long as possible, and hospice is for that end of life. Maximum stay 3 months. So what do we do if we get to 3 months and we still have someone in the bed? And that does happen. We discharge. And I know that sounds funny, like, oh my gosh, hospice actually discharges? Yes, we do. So last year, we had 6 discharges. 4 people came into hospice, and for whatever reason, I can't always explain it, that little cottage in the forest, they improved, and they looked like a visitor in about 3 or 4 weeks. And we walked them out the front door. Bye, and we'll see you when you need us again. So 4 times last year. And 2 people, unfortunately, got to week 10, 11. We're not so sure what this prognosis is looking like anymore. Now what are we going to do? Can the person go home? Usually the answer is no, because their condition has declined, but not to a point where we feel it's only going to be another couple of weeks. Because if that was the case, we'll keep the person with us. But now the prognosis is unknown. And we have 11 beds. The right people have to be in the right beds at the right time. So we may look at St. Peter's in Hamilton. They have beds and they will accept from us. We might look at retirement home. The person could qualify for that temporarily. And we may look at long-term care. So 2 people last year left. 1 went to St. Peter's and 1 went to long-term care. This year, we've had 2 discharges. 1 walked out the door, bye-bye, and the other went to St. Peter's. So those people that are lucky enough to go home, we have actually, in the history of the 18 years I've been there, we had somebody discharged home twice, the same person, believe it or not. Came in, really did well, went home. Did well for a while, declined, came in, really did well, going to the mall on day trips, went home. And came back for a 3rd time. So yeah, she, I guess, holds the record for that. And if someone said to me, what did you do? I actually would not be able to tell you what we did. So that's kind of how that works. Everybody coming into us has a DNR in place. So when someone is on comfort care in the home, there's lots of paperwork that gets done and put in place. And the talk happens about the 911 call. You know, if you're at that end of life and you're anticipating that this person's time may be short, the DNR is in place to protect that nobody's going to do a whole bunch of CPR, and that, you know, you don't have to call 911. You can call the visiting nurse, who is 24-hour coverage, and they can come out to the house and pronounce. If 911 gets called by mistake because maybe there was a little event or somebody panicked, the DNR is always in the home to protect the family so that they aren't taken to the hospital and put on respirators, and then that DNR follows them so that their trip to us in the transport, they're covered. Anything happens, they continue to come to us. They don't have to go anywhere. If they were to take a turn, the transport comes with us, they have the DNR, and our consent form is our DNR. So the next popular question that I get is, how do I know when it's time to come to hospice? And I say that that is determined by the person and their family. I can't tell someone when it's time, because every family has a line in the sand that they may not know what it is, but when you get there, I say you will know what it is. So maybe it's that the person becomes bedridden and the care becomes difficult, and that's that family's line in the sand. Maybe it's that the person is really getting close to end of life and the family says they just can't die in the family home. So that's their line in the sand. Maybe it's symptom management. The symptoms are getting very difficult, hard to manage. That may be their line in the sand. So it always starts with the person and their family. I think it's time for hospice. The care team that's caring for them can help guide them along the way, whether that be the physician, the oncologist, the visiting nurse. Hey, I think you need to call Lori, but ultimately the decision starts there. So again, people then sort of decide, where do I feel I'm at? And again, it is for a stay of less than 3 months, and how do we determine that? Sometimes physicians will be able to say to the person in the family, I feel they're in the last 3 months of their life. Sometimes it's a guess. So we look at a few things. We look at rate of decline. We look at how quickly somebody's declining, and that helps us determine whether we feel that they're in the last 3 months. And the other thing we measure, and it's nice to have some tools, is what we call the PPS, the Palliative Performance Scale. In Ontario, hospices can only admit someone who has a PPS of 40%. So as I stand here in front of you, I have a PPS of 100%. I can do everything for myself. I can take care of myself. But as people decline, that percentage goes down. I should have probably brought a copy of it, but you can Google. Google knows everything. And it gives you, it was designed so that we all talk the same language, so that I don't say, well, the person's doing this, this, and this, and somebody interprets that as maybe, well, they're a PPS of 60. It's a measurable tool that you start on one side and you circle the symptoms and what the person's able to do and move along, and then the number that's the most constant is the PPS. 40% has been linked with the potential that that person is in the last 3 months of their life. So there's a bit of a tool for us. In saying that, most of our admissions come in 30% and less. 30% means that they are totally bedridden. 40% means that they may be able to walk maybe to the bathroom and back, but then there's a multitude of other things it does measure. So that sort of gives you an idea of the sort of functioning level that someone needs to be at. They're not going out for appointments anymore. No more transfusions, no more blood work, no more IV hydration. We don't do any of that. But what we do offer is oxygen therapy, if someone needs a full catheter, all the medications, whether they be on pumps or injectable, and then antibiotics for very certain specific things. And those things, an example would be a bladder infection, which is terribly uncomfortable, and we're never going to make someone suffer through that. So each case would be looked at about what do we actually treat and what we don't treat. One more thing to touch on, because I get calls at least daily, is do we do MAID at Carpenter Hospice? That's medical assisted in dying, and the answer is no. Our board has not taken that on as something that they want to see us do. We do, it is up for review quite frequently, and there may be a time that we do offer MAID, and maybe it would be that respite room, I'm not sure. But MAID can be done at home, MAID can be done in retirement home, MAID can be done in hospital. So for now, we have opted not to do MAID. I get the question, well, I'm gonna have MAID, but I'm not ready for it now. So can I come into the hospice for a couple of weeks and then go home and have MAID? And the answer is no. Because again, you've taken up a bed from somebody that's opted to have end-of-life care in a hospice setting. So that, again, may change down the road, but I don't see anything changing anytime soon. Just the last thing I'll touch on is what to bring when someone comes. So we consider the hospice their home. So that bedroom is now their home. So anything they want to bring other than furniture, a picture for the wall, photographs. There's a little refrigerator, put your wine or your brandy in there and have that at night if you want. Pets can come visit. There's an extra bed in each room so someone can sleep over. And the medication, health card, toiletries, clothing. We have beautiful patios attached to each room, so you can bring an umbrella so that the bed can go right out on the patio and enjoy the fresh air. The beds can wheel all the way around the building and sit in front of the pond and enjoy that as well. We do have the jacuzzi tub, so that's another big selling factor. And for families, we say free parking and free coffee. Wow, there's another big selling feature. Come to the hospice, and we'll always have a cookie for you. So hopefully I've covered, because I noticed my 20 minutes is over. I'm gonna hear the gong. Hopefully I've covered everything that you're hoping to hear, but after the speakers, open to any questions that anybody has about hospice. And again, if anyone ever wants a tour, reach out to me and I will gladly show you through our little cottage in the forest.
I can tell you that I personally had experiences with Carpenter Hospice. I've had 2 family members who passed away there, and if it's something that you're fearful of, don't be. It's absolutely wonderful environment for a person to have their final days. So thanks to Carpenter Hospice for having that service for us here in our community. Okay, next, Tara, please. I don't even know if it goes this low. Can you hear me in the back? Yes?
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us once again. Thank you, Marion, for hosting. This is a great event. My colleague Denise Levon has been with you for quite some time, so any questions can be directed to her. I'm just here to assist today. So I just want to introduce us. We're from Arbor Memorial. My name is Tara Russin, and with me is Denise LeBlanc. Okay, so up on the slide here, you'll notice that it talks a little bit about Arbor Memorial, that we are the largest Canadian-owned provider for cemetery, funeral, and cremation. Okay, we do own quite a few funeral homes and cemeteries across the nation. We provide transfer from one province to another. There are some applicable discussions to be had about that, but across Canada we do own quite a few. So what I want to touch upon is actually quite a few of you have access to email and you were provided with a survey. Did everybody, was able, yeah, I'm seeing some nodding, great. Thank you for filling that out. That actually helped us out quite a bit to start our discussion here today, and hopefully, you know, dispel some of the myths about end-of-life planning. What I noticed on there was that a lot of you do not want to leave the end-of-life discussion to your loved ones, which is great, right? So you're here today to get some information, to be educated about what it is that you need to do to make those decisions so that it's not as difficult. It will be a difficult time when and if you pass away. So by doing this, by planning ahead, it allows your family to feel that time with you and that time with everyone else is quality time versus making decisions that maybe you never talked about, right? It isn't the easiest topic to talk about. So today, Denise has a slideshow for everyone that we're going to present, and it's going to help us, and it's going to help you. And if there's any questions after, we did provide a handout where it asks if you could check off if you have some information more, or you'd like to talk about it more in depth with us. We're definitely here to talk to you one-on-one, because every instance, every experience is going to be different for all of you, okay? So you might hear some question and answers later on that, yeah, you know what, I thought about that, but I didn't want to ask. And there may be others, so please fill it out if you'd like to give it back to us at the end, or leave it on your chair. We'll definitely pick that up and give you a call, okay? So we're going to, we can move on to the next slide, yeah? So Denise is going to be here with us right now, and she's going to start the presentation.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, I've got a compromised vocal cord, so if you can't hear me, just start raising your hand, and I'll try a little harder, or I'll give the microphone to Tara. We are talking about a sensitive topic today. We know that some of you I see in the audience are very familiar with helped your families. Some of you may have recently lost someone, or some of you may be dealing with a health issue currently, or have a family member who's dealing with a health issue. So it is a very sensitive topic. We will be sensitive. We will try and also be light about it, because we're just glad that you're all here to learn and get information, okay? We did have a slideshow, but the technicality's not working very well, so we're gonna skip this. So Tara and I help families families in two situations, okay? So we're sitting with families like you, we're either sitting with them in a time of immediate need, which is when there has been a death. So someone's passed away, no plans are in place, and the family's calling us in panic and chaos. We also help families long in advance before our services are required, and we refer to that as pre-planning, okay? So in pre-planning, the focus is on providing you with information so that you can make informed choices to reflect your faith, your taste, your budget at a comfortable pace, okay? So this slide speaks volumes. I don't think I really need to speak to it. Most of us, I can say, you're all here. You're all on the right side of the slide right now. We want to keep you there. So we'd rather speak to you in, comfortable scenarios. So again, our objective today, I'll just read that, is empowering you and helping you see the importance of having a plan in place so your family is not forced to plan for a crisis in the midst of a crisis. So these types of arrangements, as you can see, are just as important as all other security things that we have in place. So we have life insurance, okay, for when we pass away. We have car insurance in case we may have a car accident. Sometimes we don't have any car accidents, but we have car insurance for that matter. Pension, we plan our pension, we plan our retirement. So this is just showing that having a plan in place for these arrangements is just as important as all the other pieces of the puzzle to have full, comprehensive security for you and your family. So Tara and I, as Marion said last night, we're helping families who don't have things in place. So what are the things that we see every day when families don't pre-plan? They often don't know who to call, and they panic. They're going online, they're going in the phone book. They might have a business card from a folder that their family has when they went somewhere for information, but maybe never set things up. There's confusion, there's chaos, and decisions on unfamiliar matters are made under conditions that aren't very favorable. And these decisions are decisions that can be reversed. So a lot of times we don't even know if our family member wanted cremation or traditional burial, and now we're faced making those decisions, okay? So it can play on your mind and create a lot of stress. Families are forced to pay up front, unfortunately, when something does happen. Time pay options or comfortable payment options are not an option when we're coming in a crisis. Oh, I don't know if it's not going. There we go. Okay. So, not to be daunting, but death it's not a when if situation. We're all going to experience it at some point. We just don't know when. So let's look at the bright side now. We're all here. We have the option to kind of explore this process. So what happens when we pre-plan? I cannot stress more that consultations are super important. So families call us or individuals call us. That first step, that first phone call is probably the hardest thing. Just make the phone call. And then we're happy to walk you through things and make it very simple, okay? So we're making decisions with the ability to discuss a plan with family members. So you come sit down, you get the information, you have time on your hands now. You can go home. You can talk to your family. Hey, what do you think about this? Sometimes they don't want to talk about it. Our kids don't want to talk about it. I made my arrangements last year. I was going in for day surgery. I set everything up. I've got 2 boys in their 20s. I told them that everything's been done. They rolled their eyes. Oh my God, Mom, you're so dramatic. and they said, if everything's fine, are you going to cancel your arrangements? So what did I say? I said, no, you've got a number to call on Monday, don't thank me. So I know that I've done as much as I can. They're still going to have a ton of things to deal with, but they will thank me. So for you folks, I don't know your kids. Some kids, they don't want to talk about it. Some kids are open to it. If they're open to it, have that conversation. It's an awesome thing. But a lot of times they don't. So guess what? We've done everything for them our whole lives. Just do it and say it's done. Okay? And obviously when you pre-plan, a lot of people don't know this, there are comfortable payment options that allow for you to do this. The people that are pre-planning are the average everyday people, okay? So we have, like most providers, comfortable payment options that work with you, okay? So what else happens when we pre-plan? Our family and our estate is protected from the rising cost of inflation. So not to talk about finances, but it is true, these costs do go up every year. So when you set things up ahead of time, whether you're paying for it in advance in full or you're doing, comfortable payments, those prices are locked in. So now you're avoiding your family have to come in years down the road and paying higher prices. And then the last thing is obviously that peace of mind. So we know that we have a plan in place for our family. We know that our wishes are being followed through. I know that my kids are gonna, follow through with my arrangements to cremate me. I don't have to worry that they're gonna be torn with those decisions. Okay, so this is important, and I wanted to address this because we find that families get really confused about the role of a cemetery versus the role of a funeral home. Again, we help families with both, but it's still easy for people like you to get confused. What does a cemetery do? What does a funeral home do? So we're gonna just kind of go back to the basics. So what does a cemetery do? A cemetery is our destination, if I may say so. It's where we're gonna go. It's our final resting place. It's a place where you can honor and memorialize your loved ones, okay? They can be privately owned or they can be city run. There is a difference. There's no wrong and right, but there are both available. Last time I checked, a cemetery is required if you're being traditionally buried. I don't think there's any other options. But if we are being cremated, there are some choices that you have. And again, there's no right and there's no wrong. Some people choose to scatter. Some people choose to keep the urn at home. Some people do want a cemetery. It's basically what's right for your family. So the cemetery also assists and provides memorialization options, so things that have your name and your dates, mark your place on this earth, that you were here, right? And we also perform the burial and the interment. So Tara and I are helping families who have these needs, and we actually help families from start to finish. So from the pre-planning phases to the actual, now someone's passed away, and now we're out there with the family doing the burial. So we walk the family through the whole process. Just some examples of in-ground memorialization. So you've probably seen both of these when you visited cemeteries. We have flat bonds, plaques that families are able to use, and then some families choose a more traditional upright headstone. So those are just examples of in-ground burial to memorialize your names. Cremation options, there's a lot that you probably don't realize. These are pretty mainstream. They're called niches. Some people call them niches. I've heard some families refer to them as condos. Just some examples. Oh, this is, yeah, okay. So there are nature walks in cemeteries that do allow for cremation, burial, or interment as well. So something like this is called a pedestal, and your urns can actually go inside the pedestal unit. I had to blot out the names, obviously for privacy, but that is a cremation option that many of you probably haven't seen. This is what we call a nature walk. Again, I've blocked the names out for privacy, but this is in-ground cremation burial, and the rock is a headstone, acts as a headstone, okay? And then these are little family units. They're little structures that, 2 urns can go in the top, 2 urns can go in the bottom. It's a nice way for your family to be together if you want everybody resting in the same spot. And now to funeral homes. So what does a funeral home do? What services do they provide? What do I need a funeral home for? So they're licensed providers who basically take care of picking up your loved one, the deceased, from the place of death and bringing them back to the funeral home. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, why can't you just drive me to the cemetery? Why can't you just take me to the crematorium? Why do I have to go to the funeral home? Well, there's a lot of things that have to be done under Ontario law before burial can take place or before cremation can take place. So the funeral home also is obtaining legal documents that are required by law in Ontario. So we register the death with the city on the family's behalf. They're able to issue the burial permit or the cremation application, and both of these things are required to move forward. We also do provide services if the family wants a service. Now, your survey, there was quite a few of you who said, you know, I might not want a funeral, but I want a celebration of life. That's fine, a funeral home can do that. There were some of you that said, I don't want a funeral, I don't want a celebration of life, I don't want anything. That is 100% fine also. A funeral home or a transfer service still would be performing that task, so they would be picking up the body, they would be registering the death, filing the permits. Basically, we would just omit funeral services, so we would strip it down to what's required for burial or cremation to take place. So you would still use a funeral home for those situations, or a transfer service. And like I'm saying, a funeral home can act as a transfer service. It just means we're not actually providing a funeral. And then of course, we keep the loved one into our care until all of these things have been expedited. So until we can move forward and the family comes in and we sit down and have them sign over documents, we do keep the loved one in our care. We also perform professional care of the deceased as requested by the family, so that includes bathing, washing, sometimes embalming. Embalming is not required, it's a choice, okay? Then once everything's taken care of, we do transport the deceased or the loved one to the cemetery for burial or interment. We also assist the surviving family members with what we call aftercare. I don't want to get into that too much because I think Sarah's probably going to talk about that, so I'll let her expand on that. This is just an example of a celebration of life and how we customize things for families. So obviously it's clear that this person had a passion for motorcycles, so just an example of some neat things you can do. And then I think I'm going to pass it off to Tara for this part.
So some of the things that we hear often in our meetings is there won't be much for my family to do because I plan on being cremated. So for sure, that's why we have the consultations with you at the beginning, to let you know what are the options for this, right? We often hear that I just want to be cremated, and what do I need to do? Right? So there are different options that we could talk to. Sarah can also talk to this as well. I don't want a fuss or a funeral, so I don't need a funeral home. Sarah also likely will talk on this, right? We hear this all the time. So we're here to tell you that for sure, all your wishes can be put in place. We just would like you to know what your options are, okay? I have many assets, my home, my car, etc., life insurance, so there'll be lots of money to take care of all of this, right? But having that conversation with your family makes it more comfortable at the time when it does happen, when they don't know at that time, what did mom or dad want, what did grandma and grandpa want? We never talked about this, right? It's not a popular conversation on Sunday dinners, right? But it's something that, like Denise said, it happens. This is what's going to happen. So having that conversation just helps, at the time to make things more comfortable. Okay, so all these things, we do have steps, and there are things in place. My thing is, what I tell my families, just come in, okay? Have a conversation. You tell us what you're looking for. What would you like? And then we give you your options from there. It's nice for you to have all the answers so that in the consultation, we're providing you, we're educating you, okay? So that you can go back home, make the decisions either with your family, your loved ones, your friends, your neighbor, whoever it is. And to that effect, I wanted to, discuss something with consultations because we're able to, and I'm sure Sarah's able to go out into the community. It's great that we're all able to be here today. And this is great that Marion's able to host something like this, but I'm sure there's a lot of you who know someone who can't leave their home, someone who needs assistance, right? So this information that you're gathering today, if you can, have those conversations with your close friends or your neighbors or someone, because I often do a lot of volunteer out in the rural area as well, and they say, it's not often that they hear, services being provided out there or information sessions, and maybe that's something that we also need to do, right? Look at. But I know that there's gotta be someone that you know. So part of our consultation process is to go out in the community and do a community outreach, okay? So to give that education and that comfort. Always considering needs, compiling information, it could be a lot, right? So if we have the conversation of what we like, we break it down, we talk about the specifics, and that's when you're gonna make your decision from there, okay? Let's see, so we do also provide, at the time when you're doing all your, compiling all your information, we provide estate planning kits and things like that. We walk you through it, how it can help you with the information that you leave for your loved ones when you pass. And like Denise showed you that photograph of the, celebration of life, where there is a motorcycle. We can make it unique to you, or we can make it as simple as you like, but it's for you to make that choice. And if you can, that's where we would like to be, educating you that you make the choice, you plan it out, and we'll carry it out for you. That's okay. So, that's all I have. Denise, did you want to add anything? Thank you so much for having us. Sarah will be touching on another part of the aspect, and have a great afternoon. Thank you, Marion.
All right, does anyone need to move just a little tiny bit? Just move a little bit here in your chairs. All right.
Sarah, can you move over?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will stand here.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I am going to speak about end-of-life planning, which you've heard a whole bunch of stuff already, and you're thinking, what else is there to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about executor duties. Yay! Everything that everyone wants to do. So, executor duties, or estate planning, is obviously your will, okay? There are a lot of you here in Burlington that don't have a valid will. I know, because I deal with families, okay? So, why do you need a will? That is a big, big question. We're going to get into that. Power of attorney, we've already chatted about. Power of attorney you should already have, because you might end up needing someone to care for your health and to care for your finances, pay your bills, those sort of things. Estate planning is also about investments, life insurance, and as we talked about, there's lots of things around there. Your assets and your liabilities. So your home is your asset, your credit card is your liability, right? Those things. And then, of course, our specialty, which is cemetery and funeral pre-planning or planning, that's part of an executor's duty, okay? So power of attorney, I'm just going to quickly talk about it. It is when you are alive, okay? We have so many people call us and say, well, I am the power of attorney, but this person has died. I'm really sorry, I cannot talk to you, right? And they're like, well, why? I've been dealing with all of the bills for the last 5 years. I've been going to all the doctor's appointments for the last 5 years. Your job is now done, okay? So if your will has not been updated, and let's say your daughter has been your power of attorney for the last 5 years and she's doing a great job, but your will says your son, who lives in BC, is your executor, there is a problem, right? Because the daughter, she's been caring, she's been doing everything. Now the son is the legal person who's representing you. And that daughter, is she going to be happy about that? No. I mean, she will afterwards because she doesn't have to do all the things, but the son now has to come from BC and now deal with all of this stuff. So your power of attorney, you always need one. Quick story, my parents are in Africa at the moment. There was a pipe burst in their basement. Thank God I had the power of attorney, right? They're overseas, they can't do anything. I shed my power of attorney to the insurance company, everything got fixed, right? So even my parents who are not seniors, I needed their power of attorney. Why do you need a will, right? I don't need a will, it costs money. What will happen if you don't have a will and you die? That's really why you need a will, right? If you don't have a valid will, and when I mean valid will, we just had someone pass away, they had 3 executors, all 3 of them were deceased. Not a valid will, right? So, if you die without a will, there's something called next of kin law. And this is what we at the funeral home and cemetery have to use. Next of kin law, the first person is your spouse. Now we live in 2024. What does a spouse mean to you? Right? Are you common law with someone for the last 30 years? Do you have joint assets? Can you prove common law status? Guess what? You're not the spouse. Right? What does a spouse mean? Are you separated for the last 10 years? You're still considered next of kin. And I can tell you, I've sat with many ex-wives who are separated. I have yet to sit with an ex-husband separated. Because women are pretty quick to change that on their own. I love all you men there, though. Glad you're all here. Okay, if you don't have a spouse, or if your spouse has passed away, and this is without a will, right? We're talking about without a will. It's your children of age. Now, you all heard, I have 5 children. Do I want all 5 children to have equal say? No. I know one of those children will make my decisions that I wanted. One of those children might be good at my finances. But all 5 of them will not be able to make all of the decisions together. I mean, it's just not going to happen. The number one fight I have when there isn't a will and you have many, many children making decisions, your obituary picture. Number one fight. I'm telling you, it's true. And I can't put 4 obituary pictures on your newspaper obit, right? So that's why you need a will. Next one, parents, if they're still living, obviously. Grandchildren, your grandchildren, if your children are not available, your grandchildren have to do this, right? I've had an 18-year-old have to do this because there was no will. Siblings, again, all have equal say. How many siblings do you have? Do you want them all working together in one room? Nieces, nephews, there's last. Okay? This should convince every single person to get a will. Right? There's no excuse. Okay, just had someone pass away. No will. Siblings are the only next of kin. One is homeless and one is in rehab. Okay? What are you going to do? Right? This person should have had a will but they didn't know this. They figured the person that was traveling with them and was hanging out with them all the time would be the legal next of kin. No. This is the law that we have to go by. Okay, I've scared you guys enough. Okay, what is the role of the executor? So you've now gotten a will, thank you. Now what is your executor supposed to do? This is how you choose your executor. Number one reason is not because they're your children. Number one reason is because they're trustworthy. Okay? That's how you choose an executor. Number 2 reason, they are financially knowledgeable. Okay? Don't choose children who are not financially knowledgeable. Organization. The bottom one here, which I really would wish they'd put it up higher, but is mental health. Okay? Don't choose children who have mental health issues. Believe me, they will thank you later if they're not the executor. Okay, this is just another forum to scare you. But this is a potential 80 decisions that the executor has to make within 24 hours of your death. Okay, this is the reason you come in and talk to us. Right? Some of these on here, I'll give you an example. Does your executor know your mother's maiden name and where she was born? That's on our legal paperwork. That's what I have to ask you within 24 hours of a death. If your daughter can't remember because we haven't talked about it in 20 years, how does she feel that she doesn't know her grandmother's maiden name? Horrible, right? Horrible. Is it nice that I can say, hey, your grandmother's maiden name was Smith and she was born in New Brunswick? Great, I don't have to know that information within 24 hours of your death, right? So these are some of the questions that we ask when we pre-plan. Okay, these are more executive duties. Benefits, there are Canada Pension death benefits. We do help families apply for those benefits. Do you know that you need your marriage certificate for your spousal or widow's allowance? Do you know where your marriage certificate is? Does your executor know where your marriage certificate is? Right? These are some of the forms we have to fill out. Pensions, overseas pensions. A few of you have pensions in Germany, England, Italy, right? There's a few of them that you're getting every month. We have to cancel those, or the executor has to. Probate tax. Now, I'm not going to go into this because we do have some wonderful lawyers that present, and there are recordings that you can watch that are really well done. But a lot of people don't even know what tax happens at the time of death. Okay? So I'll just give you a quick example. You are a single person, you own your house, or you own your condo within a certain amount of time, like what time when you bought it, and you pass away. It gets taxed by the government at the time of death. Okay? That's a tax that happens. Now there's ways to go around it, there's loopholes, there's certain things, but that's one of the taxes. Another example is, you are a couple, you have each other as the beneficiary on your RIF, okay? Majority here are that way. One of you passes away, but you don't change the beneficiary on your RIF because you're not thinking that way, you're dealing with other things. You pass away, and the beneficiary on your RIF is a deceased person, okay? That gets taxed in this probate tax, right? So there is a tax that happens that nobody understands because it's confusing. But there are ways around it, and so you should know, and your executor should know that there's going to be a tax. I had a lady come in, 40 years old, wanted to pre-plan her cremation only. I said, why are you doing it at 40? You know, you're quite young. She said, my mom just passed. I paid 20 grand in probate tax. I had no idea I had that bill. So I'm not leaving a bill to anyone else. Right? One thing she can take off the plate. Lawyer fees, capital gains. Who's been reading about capital gains in the newspapers and the TVs? Yes, capital gains. So another example, my mom owns 2 properties. She has a cottage. She has a home. She passes away, I pay capital gains on her second property when I sell it, right? That's a capital gains. She wants me to donate her grand piano for a charitable tax, and she thinks that's going to cover her capital gains. Nobody wants her grand piano, right? So how are you going to deal with capital gains on the income tax? So you can see there's 2 taxes. There's death tax and income tax, right? You have a RIF. You're pulling from that RIF. You're getting income tax on that RIF, correct? Yeah. When you die, if you don't have a surviving spouse, all of your RIF money gets pulled the year you pass. So all of that income tax gets paid on your final income. Okay? Isn't that crazy? There are bills your executor has to pay, and they don't know it. And then clearance certificates, reassessments, you can be income taxed for up to 7 years, regardless if you're deceased or alive. Everyone loves CRA. And then fraud and security, health cards, passports, vehicles, insurance, passwords, Facebook, cell phones, laptops. The list goes on, right? Your executor needs to deal with all of that. Okay, now that I've scared you all into getting a will and changing who your executor is, there are some options in Ontario. We've already discussed a few of them. Traditional burial in a cemetery, natural burial, cremation, which we already talked about, burial niche wall scattering home placement, and then just for Jeanette Bach here, water cremation, which is not available in all locations, but it is available in Ontario. Thanks, Jeanette, for making me say that. Natural burial, so Smith's Funeral Home is a green funeral home. That means we can offer all natural burial, no embalming, no casket. There's only so many cemeteries that can do it, and it can only be in a special area.
So, as the ladies so lovely talked about, was end of life decisions should not be made at the end of life. You guys should all understand that now. And the more you can do now, the less mess you leave later. If you're thinking about how much your executor has to do, why not prepay your funeral? Because that's one thing, one bill you can take off the plate, right? There's so much other things that's going to come up. And that's why we're so passionate about this. Okay, these are just, Smiths is a part of the Green Burial Council, so we are a green funeral home, as I already mentioned. These are examples of green caskets. You can see they're quite plain. Right is all natural. Left is what we call a carrier with a shroud. And then this is just an example of a green cemetery. Unfortunately, it's in Picton, Ontario. That's why I felt safe to kind of show it, because it's really far away, but it's a natural burial section. Okay, and it's something that's kind of new, but nobody plans to be all green at the time of need. This only happens if you pre-plan. And it's just some examples of what a green funeral means. You can speak to me after if you wish for more information, but there's only about 4 cemeteries in Ontario. Okay, funerals, we kind of already chatted about it, but it is for those left behind. We always want to acknowledge the death. Didn't we learn that through COVID, when people passed away and we had no idea? We want to be able to acknowledge something happened, something big happened. You want your community to come around you, you know, the lasagnas, the casseroles, right? You want them to say, hey, something big happened. Funerals are a chance to give storytelling, and when we talk about funerals, we also talk about celebration of life, right? Like, they can be happening before or after cremation. When my husband's grandmother passed away, she was 97. They thought, oh, no one's gonna wanna speak. You know, she's 97, she's too old, there's gonna be nobody there. The room was packed, there was 120 people, and my husband spoke because he really wanted to talk about how amazing his grandma was. So giving that moment, right, for someone to talk about how great they are is such a great part of grief. And then it's a journey, right? And we always have the saying, grief shared is grief minimized. So if I'm having a hard time because someone close to me passed away, if I share that with someone and they really care about it, it makes me feel better, right? That's why we do what we do, is because we want people to understand that something big happened to me and I really need to share it, right? That's what funerals are for, and celebrations of life as well. These are just some personalized examples, and these are available, as they showed, like a bench. They didn't talk about the bench, but they have some lovely benches at Burlington Memorial Gardens. Donations to charity, as I mentioned. We just had a champagne toast. It was quite fun. This one down at the bottom are school bags filled with school items for a teacher that passed away. What a nice way to remember her. Some quilts, and then we always have lots of food these days. Lots and lots of food. So I'm just going to move on to the advantages of why you want to pre-plan. I'm sorry. Okay, get on the camera. So we do have a chance in income tax law to tax shelter some of your pre-planning funds. So what that means is, just like your TFSA, your tax-free savings account, you can put money in, and when you pull that money out, you don't pay income tax, correct? We have the same fund at the funeral home and at the cemetery. It's called an EFA, an eligible funeral assignment. And so we can actually tax shelter. I can do $15,000 and the cemetery can do $20,000. It's tax-free income. So as it gains interest, because we know all the costs are going up, we take the interest to cover our inflation, but you don't get an income tax bill on your final income. So a lot of people take advantage of just sheltering some money where the government can't touch it. It also doesn't go through probate tax. It's guaranteed. It can be transferred anywhere in Canada. Your wishes are known and your choices are made by you. Okay, so I just really like this saying. The idea is that when I'm sitting with someone and the time has happened, you know, the irony of it is that the questions I'm asking that person, they want to ask you, right? They want to say, oh, did you want this? Did you want that? You know, is it okay if we do the cardboard casket, or is it okay if we do a nicer casket? You know, can I spend more money? Would you be okay with that? Or would you think I'm being bad with your money, or, the biggest one that I've had recently, to be honest, is a bill went NSF. And your child is so upset because they didn't have access to pay that bill right away. They feel horrible. They feel like they're wrecking your money because you never went NSF. You never missed a payment, right? And they feel bad because that payment got missed, right? How hard, right, for your children to feel that way when they can't control if a bank gets frozen or if your credit card gets taken, right? I know Netflix only lets me do it through a credit card. I can't do it through my bank account, right? So if I were to die, I told my husband, there's no Netflix because it's on my credit card. Sorry. It only goes through a credit card. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had a good time with my presentation. It's also my birthday, hence why I'm in a good mood. So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, ladies. Just go on this. So thanks very much to all our presenters. Lots of information. So now it's your turn. Who has a question? Who has something to ask? Okay. I'm going to run around with the microphone, so just be patient with me, okay? And so now we're just approaching 3 o'clock. We will do our best to wrap up by 3. If you have to leave, we understand. If you want to stay and ask more questions, we'll be here.
If somebody, like, they try to choose who to be an executor, like, what if a person has no one to ask? Do you have to, like, does a public trustee somehow get put in there? Can we pay for that?
Yeah, so public trustee will take over if you're incapable of choosing and it's already past that point. Public trustee will come take over. You don't want that to happen though, because public trustee won't do what you want them to do. You want to either use a trust company. There are trust companies that you can use as executors. There's also banks. So there's banks that can become your executors, and then some lawyers will also become your executors. So there are other options than just family members.
I just want to mention that in next month, in July, we've got a presenter. Her name is Debbie Stanley. She also has a company where it's a trustee for hire, basically. She's not a trust company, it's an individual. Okay.
Sarah, how is the percent figured out on probate tax?
So it is 1.5%, and it starts at 50,000. So if you have less than 50,000, then what we call is basically you're probating your will, but there's no money involved. So under 50,000, the bank might still ask for probated will. And all that means is you're going to the court and saying this is the final will, this is the last will, but there's no bill associated with probate. It's just that you're finalizing that final will. Once you hit that 50,000, it's 1.5. 1.5.
Does that percent rise with the amount that is in the your finances?
I don't know that 100%. Nilo is the best one to talk about that, but it's definitely 1.5. So as you like 100,000, 1.5 to it's at least 101.5. Yes.
The
Oh,
answer
sorry.
is no, it's 1.5.
Across the board.
$1 million will be 15,000.
Yeah, I thought so. So it's 1.5 across the board, but it's how much is in there, right? So gets the 1.5.
Is there HST on top of that?
Death and taxes, my friend. Death and taxes, always.
This is for Sarah. I have 2 children who are in common law relationships, and even I'm confused by what a common law relationship is versus a marriage. With regards to everything you talked about.
Yes, common law is very confusing, especially after death. So before death, you can claim common law status because you're both together, right? This isn't my roommate, this is my spouse. Once someone's died, you don't have that second person to say, I'm not just a roommate, right? So how to claim common law status after a death, you need to have a common law declaration done, or it has to be 3 years and you have to prove it. So you have to have like joint deed, joint insurance, joint rental, there's so many ways you have to show it, and there's a lot, this is the hiccup. A lot of people are common law because they were married and they got divorced and they said never again, and so they keep everything separate, right? And they're separate the whole time, even though they're together for 30 years. And so when they die, sorry, you're not the next of kin, so it goes to the children. And there isn't a lot of common law protection when it comes to houses, and there's like a whole bunch of stuff about common law. Honestly, it's my bane of existence, common law status, because this person has cared for you their whole lives, they've helped you their whole lives, they've loved you your whole lives, and I have to say, I'm sorry, you don't mean anything to the law, right? So don't be common law or have everything joined. Get married. No, just get married. This makes it easier for me.
Thank you for organizing this. It's been wonderful. Thank you. And it's nice to be among like-minded people. It's a little weird that we're all sitting here and talking about, death and calling it passing away, but that's what it is. A lot of this has been very interesting. I'm just asking a very light question. Inhumation, after, it's all done. Have you ever had a situation where nobody showed up to collect the ashes?
Do you want to talk or actually? Me? Okay. Yes, actually, we have had that situation, and I'll go one further. The gentleman was taking care of his brother. Okay, this stays in the room. The gentleman was taking care of his brother who was an alcoholic his whole life. And the brother said, I'm paying for the cremation only, that's it. I don't want any death certificates, and I'm not coming back for them. What am I gonna do, right? So I said, listen, we have to at least have permission to scatter, because legal in Ontario, to scatter means that they're gone, you can't retrieve them, right? So we said, in this case, we will scatter because there's nothing we just don't want. But we've had that scenario where there just isn't anyone available. We'll offer options, we'll offer solutions, we'll try to figure it out with your executor, but it is your executor's duty to deal with their cremated remains, not ours.
So, Sarah, beyond that, could you just talk a little bit more about scatter? What are the rules around scatter? Can I just go dump somebody in my garden?
Well, you could, but if you sell your house, you have to claim that you've done that, which that's supposed to happen. I know you don't claim it, but that's a legal requirement. But yeah, so scattering is a little bit unique in that Bronte Creek has put up a sign saying scattering is available here. So it's a lake of water, right? You can go have a picnic, and you can scatter. Can you scatter at the golf course? No, but I know people do it, but no, right? Can you travel with a small portion to Hawaii and scatter in Hawaii? Technically, no, but we will help you get the documents to do that, right? So there are legal aspects of scattering, and there's ones that people do anyways that we aren't supposed to be doing, but it's considered bone fragments. So if you do have a police officer with a dog looking for someone, they're supposed to only be in certain areas. Does that make sense? That's kind of the legal reason why.
If I already have it pre-planned with the Smith Funeral Home, but now there's all these new green water, how locked are you? How locked in are you with your, which you might have done 10, 15 years ago?
Great question. So it is a case-by-case basis where I will sit down with you and see how different we're gonna do. COVID's a good example in that we had people pre-planned for a big party, visitation, casket, the whole 9 yards, and we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't perform it because of COVID. So what we did is we took the amount that was in your pre-plan, that invested amount, we told the family, okay, there's $6,000 here, what do you want us to do with it? And then we just put that money towards their wishes. So there's different ways of dealing with it. I've had a few people who had a rental casket on their pre-plans, meaning they wanted a casket present, but now everyone has an urn present, so they don't want the rental casket. So in that scenario, it's like a case by case. I'll see if I'll just take some money off, or when we get there, put it towards a newspaper, or work it out.
What I mean is, you go from cremation. Now,
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that changes is we don't even earn. Because we are still the ones coming to your place of death. We're still doing all of the paperwork. We're still placing you in the casket, and we're still going to the cemetery. So technically, it's all the same in that way.
What if you have one spouse that wants to be in the wall and one 6 feet under?
So yeah, so that happens quite often. We call that a combination. So we try to decide what's the best fit. The person who's being traditionally buried has to go in the ground or in a mausoleum. And the urn can also go in the ground in the same spot. So there are different accommodations for different options, and we do what's right for the family.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry, I'll come back to you, Marion. Oh, you hold on to those. We're gonna draw that. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna swing. Oh, on the way, Grace.
Is it possible that you can sell a spot?
Yes, so every cemetery has different rules. I will say we used to, if you had a spot with our cemetery, before 2012, if you, for whatever reason, didn't need that space anymore, maybe you found out you had family plots elsewhere, or maybe you're leaving Canada, and we don't have a transfer privilege outside of Canada because our cemeteries are Canada-wide, so we can transfer you within Canada, but let's say you're going elsewhere. So before 2012, we would refund a portion of your plot. The reason it's not a full amount is because what we do with Arbor is perpetual care. Maintenance is included. The way we are able to provide maintenance ongoing at no cost to your family is when you purchase a space or a plot, we take a percentage of what you've paid and we lock that in a trust fund. That percentage in that trust fund is accruing interest annually, so there's interest growing on everybody's percentage. That feeds care and maintenance, so you're never having to pay for maintenance. So in 2012, or before 2012, we would be able to refund the percentage that wasn't locked in trust. After 2012, the government said, okay, you can continue to do it that way, or you can allow families to sell your plot privately. So we opted for the second option because it's in the best interest of the family. Basically, you would find a buyer, whether it's through your church, word of mouth. We don't really facilitate it, but we would do an ownership transfer. So you would ask us, what is that plot worth today? We would gladly tell you, and then you would sell it privately yourself, and we would just do a change of ownership, okay? We don't allow you to buy plots to sell them. We don't do that. It's not like real estate. You can't flip them.
Selling houses, that's what I would do.
Yeah, you're not that's a no-go. Just sometimes there's circumstances that are obviously inevitable.
Just mindful of the time, Sarah. Sarah, I think it's important to note that executors can vacate the role prior to starting any executor duties. There is a term for it, I just can't think of it.
Yes, so what she's bringing up is, let's say someone passes away and you're the executor, and there's a whole lot of debt and there's no assets, right? Everyone's scared of that scenario. And so what she's saying is, if you become an executor and you realize, hey, this person has a lot of debt, there's no assets, you can then, with the lawyer, step down, and then what I kind of claim it as is like going through bankruptcy. So you're calling the credit card and saying, listen, there's no estate, and you're giving them a death certificate, and the lawyer is helping you do that, right? So you're kind of just vacating that position. Sometimes they'll try to look for, if you can't because you live in another country, you can't be an executor unless you pay a bond, right? So if you can't be an executor, you can also vacate and have the next person step up, or have someone else step up who's not claimed as the executor on the original will.
Okay, and the last one, what was that trust at the funeral home called to set money aside?
Yeah, so it's an EFA, Eligible Funeral Assignment, and it's through income tax law. Thank you. Got one more question back here, and then we'll have our draw and wrap up.
I don't know if I really have a question or a suggestion. My friend is dealing with her mother's estate right now, and it was an old will. I have never heard of it before, but they're trying to verify the signature, and they're not certain how that's going to happen. The lawyer is gone, the witness is gone. I'm not certain how it's going to come about, but the suggestion is that maybe we should look at our wills every 10 years, at least have them signed again.
Especially if your lawyer dies. Definitely. So just to talk about just that one thing is if you do a home will, okay, if you do a home will, the two witnesses to your will cannot get anything from your death, and they have to be available to say you were of sound mind when you do die. So I know people talk about home wills, like your lawyer is your witness that you are of sound mind. If you don't use a lawyer, then your witnesses have more say, like more things to do. So don't have your witness be your mother, because she will probably outlive, like pass before you. So those are, if you're doing a home will, just look into it, because I've had a lot of home wills be invalid. Especially if you're mad and you like white out people, that's invalid. So, yeah, home wills are not the best. It did happen, by the way.
Okay, once again, thank you very much to Lori, Tara, Denise, and Sarah. Great presentation. I hope that everyone has come away with at least one nugget of information, hopefully more than that as well. But this slide is up at every presentation. The message is consistent. Doesn't matter who's talking about what or when or how, it's always around be prepared. And I think you heard that message today in spades. Before you head up, if you haven't, our educational partners are here. They're here for you. So please take advantage of the ability to chat with them, get to know them, learn what they're all about, what types of services that they offer, because you at some point you will need them. So once again, thank you to them for all their support. The draw, yes. Also, if you haven't already, you can RSVP to the next session. Oh, sorry, the draw. Let's do the draw. Okay. Lori, you can sit in here quietly. Thank you. All right, you ready? So 2 tickets for this for the Evergreen Summit on June the 13th. 622-9250. If you haven't done so already, please register for the next session if you plan to attend. Again, some of the evaluations are very helpful to us. Thank you.